Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for tuning in for today's Williamson County conversation with Senator John Cornyn. My name is Jim Johnson. I'm the president and CEO with the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce, and I'm joined today by Jason Ball with the Round Rock Chamber and Tony Moline with the Cedar Park Chamber. A couple housekeepings to go through before we get started. You will notice that you are muted, and all guests will remain muted throughout the program. If you have questions or need assistance, please use the Q&A function located at the bottom of your screen. Today, we will hear an update from Senator Cornyn, followed by questions from the chamber. Then, if time allows, the opportunity for the senator to answer a few audience questions through the Q&A function. Today's event was organized by the Cedar Park Chamber of Commerce, the Round Rock Chamber of Commerce, and the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce. You will hear from all three chambers today. We are grateful to be joined by our senior U.S. Senator, John Cornyn. He has served Texas as a judge, as Attorney General, and now as our U.S. Senator, and he has earned a reputation as an articulate and powerful voice for Texans in Washington. He's known for reaching across the aisle to get things done, and as he did for the CARES Act, which he'll tell us all about today. Welcome, Senator, and thank you for being here.
Well, it's great to be with you. Thank you for having me. And it's, as I was telling the leaders of the various chambers, I wish I was there with you in person, but this will have to suffice. I appreciate not only Jason, but Jim and Tony for teaming up to organize this call so I can provide you some more information about what Congress is doing to respond to the coronavirus. It seems like a long time ago, but it was only a few months ago I was last in Round Rock to meet with some Dell employees and do a town hall there, especially talking about things like trade and to hear from their employees about issues important to them. It's safe to say that the coronavirus has flipped our economy on its head, but it's only intensified the work we need to do to support our Texas businesses and workforce and to provide you with the resources that you need during this unprecedented time. This is both a public health crisis and an economic crisis, to be sure, unprecedented in my life and perhaps in all of yours. Congress has now passed 4 bills to bolster resources, starting with our healthcare providers and then to support workers and businesses who've been impacted. Let's start with our hospitals. We know that Governor Abbott, when he and other leaders at the state and local level and national level asked our hospitals to defer elective surgery during this period of time so that they could then have surge capacity for their hospital beds, ICUs, and for equipment like ventilators. And so many of them have had to furlough their employees, strangely enough, during a public health crisis because they simply couldn't pay the bills. We also know that there was a worldwide rush for personal protective equipment, masks, gloves, and the like. And indeed, we were in competition with every state and every nation, every country in the world for that. And we've learned another important lesson here in that we should not depend on China or other countries for our supply chains for critical equipment like this. Turning now to the individual challenges, we know that a lot of people out of work through no fault of their own. And the ones that I think about the most are the ones that work in the hospitality business, who maybe they work for wages or tips or some combination, and they have no money coming in the front door. Well, the first thing we decided we needed to do is offer direct financial help to those who need it the most. So we provided that an individual making up to $75,000 a year could receive up to $1,200 in an immediate cash distribution that would be deposited in their bank account. A family of 4 could qualify for up to $3,400 with a household income of $150,000 or less. A lot of that money's already been out the door, and the rest should arrive this week. So I just think that, as we're asking people to hunker down and not go to work and to engage in this mitigation strategy, we need to make sure that they have the money to actually pay for the necessities of life. We also decided that we needed to beef up the unemployment insurance program by broadening the eligibility to include nonprofits and independent contractors. We provided an extra federal benefit of $600, and we extended the period of time by another 13 weeks through the end of the year. So hopefully, between the direct financial aid and the benefits through the workers' comp program, hopefully that will provide individuals some bridge to hopefully what will become a restored economy and restored jobs after we defeat this virus. Perhaps the most popular part of this program was the Paycheck Protection Program, which you now know a lot about. This was designed to incentivize employers to maintain their payroll, and it actually provided for 8 weeks of cash flow assistance to those small businesses of 500 people or less. It provided a low interest loan that could cover everything from payroll to supply chain disruptions to rent. And here's the incentive, the hook, if employers are able to maintain their payroll until June, then the payroll, rent, and utility payments covered by the loan can be completely forgiven. In other words, it turns from a loan to a grant. This has been extremely popular, not without its problems, because anytime you stand up something this new, this big, this fast, there's going to be problems. But we now know that after 2 weeks, the fund was exhausted. $350 billion demonstrates what the demand was, what the need was out there across the country. Out of that initial funding, Texas small businesses were granted 135,000 loans and a total of $28.5 billion. Recognizing that some smaller banks and companies have struggled to get their applications processed, while some of the bigger banks have been more successful, maybe better organized, better prepared. The Small Business Administration has designated an 8-hour period yesterday where loans only from small lenders were processed. They may repeat this exercise in the future if it's found to be beneficial. But we added another $320 billion to the initial 350, and it came with additional oversight because our initial distribution of these funds found that some large publicly traded companies were taking advantage of it. Universities like Harvard University with the biggest endowment in the country. And so we've now tweaked that to prevent large, profitable, or otherwise ineligible businesses from jumping ahead of our mom and pops. We know there's a lot of need out there, a lot of pain, but the Paycheck Protection Program is a great resource for small businesses and your employees, and I'm glad now more business owners will be able to take advantage of it. Well, what's next? One of the big topics of discussion right now is when will the economy reopen? And all eyes are on Governor Abbott's order to begin to allow some businesses to open on a qualified basis. It'll be interesting to see how that's managed. And of course, the eyes of the nation will be on Texas. But we've been relatively fortunate in terms of a comparison to other parts of the country. Perhaps places like New York are the ones that jump out at us. And we know there's no one-size-fits-all solution because Texas isn't New York and Taylor isn't Houston. So we need to work together, all of us, at the state and local and national level, to determine what is a safe and reasonable way for the cities, the counties to make a decision on a case-by-case basis. We don't want to have to do this twice, so we need to get it right the first time. So now that we've replenished the Paycheck Protection Program, people are asking me, what does phase 4 look like? Well, my personal preference would be to see how implementation for the legislation we passed so far works and to identify the gaps that need to be filled. And that's why calls like this are so important, because it gives me the opportunity to get feedback from you on what's working and what you'd like to see additional coming out of Washington. I'm just about due for another visit to see you all in person, but until then, I'm grateful for this amazing technology that allows us to connect virtually. Many of you know Jeff Williford, my deputy, my district director in the Austin office that covers Central Texas, and I'd encourage you to reach out to him if there are additional issues that we aren't able to cover today. So again, thanks to all of my friends in Williamson County for organizing the call, and let me turn it back to you, Jason, to get us started with some questions.
Senator, thank you very much for that statement. Just want to let you know we've got just about 150 people on the call right now, and so there's high interest in this. For those that don't know me, I'm Jason Ball. I'm the president and CEO of the Round Rock Chamber, and what we're going to do is start with some Q&A. If you have a question that you would like to see proposed to the senator, we certainly won't have time to get to all of them, but please type them in the Q&A section. They're showing up on our screens here, and we will get as many of those included in the program today as well. Our goal is still to end on time at 2:30, and so we're gonna crank through as many questions as we have time for. And so with that, Senator, you talked about next steps. Thank you very much, and we appreciate your support for the expansion of stimulus and those stimulus bills. I want to talk a little bit about next steps. State and local governments have asked for support in many areas of the country, and so far that type of support has not been included in any of the existing legislation. Majority Leader McConnell has said that Congress should maybe press the pause button on any new aid like that. Do you anticipate that Congress might move to approve spending to support state and local governments? And has anything been talked about school districts?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of confusion there because, it's understandable during this kind of emergency, but so far the Congress has appropriated $150 billion for state and local support, and Texas's share of that is $11.2 billion. Williamson County is one of the 3 central Texas jurisdictions that got direct payments from the State Stabilization Fund because they had a population over 500,000. And my understanding is last week that the Williamson County received a payment of $92 million. Yes. You know, every jurisdiction that depends on sales taxes or economic activity is hurting now. And certainly I support providing state and local assistance for the coronavirus related costs. I think what you heard from Senator McConnell was he wants to pump the brakes here a little bit because we've already spent $2.5 trillion, and it's been very quick. And we want to make sure that what we've done so far gets to the intended beneficiary. So we know that the rest of the money that didn't go to the larger jurisdictions is in the governor's office. He's waiting for guidance from Treasury on how to distribute it, but more or less, I expect it to be distributed on a per capita basis. So you can expect to see substantial resources coming to each county and each city under that distribution. But if there's more help that's needed, I think I certainly am open to that. What I don't want to see is not every state and not every county is as well run as Texas and Williamson County. And we know that there's some big states that have unfunded pension problems and other unrelated issues. And I just don't think, I think we need to recognize there has to be some limit in terms of what the federal government can and should do to help those jurisdictions separate and apart from the coronavirus. That's where I think that conversation is going to continue. I might just add, one of the things that will be included in the next bill will be some type of liability protection for employers who, consistent with the guidance you get from local and state and federal authorities, are trying to reopen their business. It's really important that we do so safely, but it's important that we begin to do so because obviously a lot of people out of work, our economy is in recession, and we got to find a way both to defeat the virus and to get our economy back, hopefully by the third quarter of this year.
Very good, thank you. Senator, along with that substantial amount of spending that you've already highlighted, the federal debt by some estimates has already climbed to over 22 trillion, and that's by the end of quarter 4 2019. So before all of these large spending bills had gone into effect. By some estimates, the debt to GDP ratio is at something like 106%. So as we appear to be headed into a period of economic stagnation, given that debt to GDP ratio, how concerned should Americans be about the total debt level of the nation? How concerned are you as a national leader about our total debt load?
Well, I consider myself to be a fiscal conservative. So sometimes in an emergency like this, it's like a war. You got to win the war first and then worry about how to manage the consequences later. But we had a conference call today with Hank Paulson, who was Treasury Secretary during the 2008 Wall Street meltdown and Great Recession. And he distinguished between structural debt and deficits which are created by our mandatory spending programs like entitlements, and this, which is kind of a one-time or one-off emergency. Not that either one of them are to be trifled with, but he told us with low interest rates now, as long as the Federal Reserve keeps interest rates low, which he expects them to do, this should not be something unmanageable. Again, if you told me 2 months ago that I would have voted, or that the vote in the Senate would have been unanimous for $2.2 trillion, now about $2.5 trillion, and I wouldn't have believed you. But this is a real emergency, and we're doing the best we can, and we're doing everything we think is necessary.
Thank you. These are unprecedented times, to be sure. Let's talk about oversight, and then I'm gonna, as you're answering this question, I'm going to click off my screen and check the Q&A. I see we've got some Q&A questions coming in from our audience. Earlier this month, President Trump fired Inspector General Glenn Fine, who is the acting Inspector General at the Pentagon. He was fired from his new role as the chair of the Pandemic Response Accountability Committee, and he was to be the lead person responsible for oversight of the $2.2 trillion CARES Act. How satisfied are you that appropriate oversight of this bill is assured? And then what kind of reporting or information will you as a senator receive about the CARES Act implementation that's going to set your mind at ease that it's been implemented and monitored appropriately?
Well, I think that's one reason why it makes sense to hit the pause button or to pump the brakes here a little bit to make sure that what we've already done is consistent with what Congress intended. And but I want to assure you that there will be comprehensive oversight. Inspector generals play part of that role, and I trust there will be another Inspector General that will do that. But I promise you, there's already been appointed a bipartisan, bicameral Oversight Committee in the Senate and the House, and we will be able to ask all the questions and exercise all the authority we need to do an after-action review of this response.
Very good, thank you. We've got a lot of questions online here, so Senator, I'm going to start with kind of I think a pretty cut and dried one. One of our attendees is asking if retired folks qualified for the $1,200 support payment that was approved earlier.
Short answer is yes.
Thank you very much. Is it Natalie Stedeman, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing people's names here, is asking if it's anticipated if the PPP funds will cover current applications or do you anticipate will these funds run out also? And as I interpret that, I think she's referring to the newest $484 billion stimulus package because the first round of PPP funds was fully allocated.
Well, my understanding is that the burn rate or the spend rate is pretty high. And indeed, we saw the $350 billion go out in 2 weeks. With the additional $320 billion, I'm sure will last not much longer than that. And then we can take a look and see what else we need to do. I don't believe we have done everything we will do or need to do. We need to throw our small businesses and their employees a lifeline because many of these businesses will no longer exist if we can't find a way to get a bridge from here to there past the virus. So we're doing things that we would never do under any other circumstances, but if it's necessary, I think we need to use our best judgment and take action.
Thank you, Senator. I've got an interesting question that hits on an issue that I've heard a lot about from our small business community that I'd like to get your opinion on, and it's coming from Mira Boyda. She's indicated we are a small real estate development group with one small strip center. They have allowed their tenants to have rents forgiven because they can't pay, and they've allowed those businesses to stay. And that's how they're trying to spread out and share the financial burden in this time. And I think what the question is getting to is what do you see possible to help businesses work with their leasing companies or mortgage agencies so they are able to stay in their current location and not have to close down shop, either through working with real estate companies or other mortgage holders. Is there anything you can comment on in that space?
Well, let me start by saying good for Nira and her company for working with her tenants. I think you're going to see a lot of informal arrangements around the country like that because everybody realizes it's important to keep these businesses and those relationships alive. I know there have been a number of steps taken at local level and at the state level, including a limitation on eviction proceedings. Basically, those relationships are going to have to be worked out on a case-by-case basis. The money that we are providing both for small businesses and individuals hopefully will help. But, and I know through HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, there's some programs for federally funded housing. But let me just make this suggestion. If there's any specifics that you want us to look into, if you'll get that information to Jeff Williford, we'll follow up.
Excellent. Senator, thank you very much. I'm getting notified this will be our for time purposes, this is going to be our last question. And then following your answer, Senator Tony Moline from the Cedar Park Chamber is going to jump in to close us out. And I want to end with a question we've gotten that I think is on the minds of a lot of Americans right now in terms of feeling safe. Mira Talamo is asking, when will we have access to widespread testing for all residents for coronavirus and for antibodies to the virus so we can get infected people quarantined and stop transmission from person to person? That's a question I hear a lot in our communities right now.
Yeah, me too. I think there's been a lot of confusion about the testing recommendations for the Center for Disease Control. Their recommendation has been only people who are symptomatic or who are documented who have come in contact with somebody who's tested positive should get tested. So that's been the priority, obviously, with our healthcare, frontline healthcare personnel and our law enforcement and the like. There are different types of tests, but part of the problem is trying to ramp up the availability of the test. I think the last figure I saw was that Texas had about 300, more than 300,000 tests. And if nationwide, we're well over 5 million. But I think a lot of these tests there's questions about the reliability of them. And so we need to be careful as we try to get that done, that we don't expose people to unreliable tests and give them bad information. To me, one of the most promising types of tests is the antibody test, which will tell you if you've been exposed to the virus and developed an immune response. It's not determined yet how long, if there will be immunity and how long, but the Center for Disease Control believes that this will provide some measure of immunity and give some people assurance that they can't get sick again. But the most confounding part of this is the number of people who apparently have antibodies indicating they've been exposed to the virus and who never felt any symptoms. While others, the very elderly and people with underlying chronic disease, this has been a potentially deadly virus. So what we need to do is ramp up the testing, the different types of testing, while we continue to pursue these clinical trials for a cure. And there was an announcement yesterday about one particular one that had been developed for the SARS virus that has shown some promise, but then ultimately a vaccine will be what allows us to more or less return to normal and treat this kind of in the same category as a seasonal flu.
All right. Well, thank you, Senator. We truly appreciate you being a part of this and talking to all of our businesses out there. Again, my name is Tony Moline, and I'm the CEO of the Cedar Park Chamber of Commerce. I do want to thank the Senator for participating today. I want to thank everybody who got on this call for participating today. I think we gained some valuable information from Senator Cornyn, and we truly appreciate that. Today's session was recorded and will be available to view and share. I again want to thank Senator Cornyn and Senator's office for participating with us. I would also like to thank the Georgetown and Round Rock Chambers of Commerce for all you're doing for small businesses. Thank you for joining us, and I hope everybody has a great day.
Thanks, Tony.